Another one for Tommy boy. Another one for the world. Another one for the listeners.
Episode number 27 of the Third Leg Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Riley Warren, and alongside with me today is my co-host, Dr. Dunny. How you doing? How you been, buddy?
Hey, pretty good. Struggling through the work week. We're almost to the weekend. I'm heading to Vegas on Friday, so get mentally prepared for that, making sure the liver's prepared for that, and we'll be good to go.
Yeah, get as hydrated as possible, drink as much or eat as many carbs as possible, fuel up, and, get ready for that. I've never experienced a bachelor party in Vegas, so I literally have no idea what your body is about to go through.
I would assume it's going to be like The Hangover, but hopefully we have a better camera, or at least one that we can remember where it's at, so we can remember what goes on.
Yeah, just stay away from the flories.
Right, yeah, no roofing. And then if I'm on the roof, throw a mattress over top. Someone will find me. They know where to look now.
Attaboy, we learned something.
Right.
So today we're talking about the best conference in all of college football for pretty much our entire lifetime, the SEC. How are you feeling about the SEC this year, Dunny?
Like you were saying, through our lifetime, it's pretty much been ran by, it's a 3-team conference. Bama, Georgia, LSU, they all have multiple championships. You have your one-offs with, Kentucky, Florida, Auburn being pretty good. But for the most part, if you had to put a bet in, those are the 3 teams that you can bet on. Much the same this year is what everyone is expecting, but you never know what can happen. Some regimes have kind of left as far as players that have been at these teams for a long time, so they have to refill. Obviously, these are well stocked with good recruits, so they should have no problem, but you truthfully never know till you get tested.
For sure. This year, just like last year, Georgia is the favorite. They're minus 115 going into this year. And the biggest underdog is Vanderbilt at plus 50,000. If you smoke crack, Vanderbilt at plus 50,000 is the bet for you.
Call the number now.
1-800-GAMBLER. Please call the number, even if you're a diehard Vanderbilt fan. Plus 50,000. That's like some of the craziest odds I've seen.
Just stick to baseball if you're a Vanderbilt fan, truthfully.
Yeah, it's like they don't belong in this division.
Not at all.
Because after 50,000, plus 50K, the next best odds is plus 12,000. So the disparity between those is insane. And Vanderbilt had like one of their better seasons last year, so it's disrespectful. It ain't gonna happen, like I said, but just disrespectful.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
All right, so we're gonna start off with the SEC East. Let's roll with Florida.
All right, Florida's over under, at least what I found, is at 5.5 is what it's set at. Truthfully, not a huge fan or believer in the Gators this year. Under is where I'm going. McNeese State, Charlotte, and then probably Vanderbilt and Missouri. They could win another random SEC game, but that puts them at 5. I just don't see the Gators getting it done. Take the under.
I'm right there with you. I'll take the under as well. One of my more confident picks. I think Missouri can even get it done, and they could be a 3-win team at the end of the year. They return only 4 starters. Their defense is one of the worst in the conference with points allowed and yards per game. And the last few years, they're just super shaky on defense. And even in close games, they can never get a stop. That's like one of their biggest problems, and it has been plaguing them for the last 4 or 5 years. Their defense can't get it done, even in the swamp at home. Like, they just cannot come up with a big defensive stop. And that's pretty much been their biggest problem. They had one of the best quarterbacks they've had since Tebow, maybe, with Richardson, and they couldn't get it done with him. So I don't expect anything much more this year, if anything. So I think they're going to be one of the bottom feeders this year. Hopefully they can regroup and get it back together for next year.
Definitely. And it kind of sucks if you're a Gator fan, right? You went from having your stretch in the Urban Meyer days of being the top dog, and now you're kind of the bottom feeder. You're not even the best team in your state anymore. Florida State's kind of taking that over, even though they kind of struggle every once in a while too. But between Florida State and the U, you never really, you don't even, aren't the best team in your state, I guess I should say.
For sure. And that goes a long way with recruiting as well. If you want to play in Florida, well, there's a few more teams rather than just Florida.
Right. Even UCF had a year in which they went undefeated and claimed the national championship for themselves, but
Yeah,
we
they
didn't give it
claim
to
that
them.
bogus Fugazi. Didn't they hang a banner?
They did hang a banner.
That's ridiculous. Burn that shit. Unreal. All right, next on the list is the SEC favorite, Georgia. Their over-under is at 11.5. They got to go undefeated to cover this. You think it's going to happen?
You know, it's tough to bet against them. I do think they go undefeated. The one game I'm really worried about for them on their schedule would be Week 11 at Tennessee. They have to go to Rocky Top and play. That's a tough environment. By then, they should have their offense, as far as quarterback, balanced out and ready to go and know who they're going to go with and what kind of play calls they should be doing. But if you're in blowout games, which they'll probably be in for the first majority of the season, you're not truly getting tested. So if this is your first test and it's on the road in a tough environment, probably a night game, you never know what can happen.
Yeah, it'll probably be homecoming, night game. They'll get as much exposure as possible trying to take down Georgia, especially if they're both going in undefeated.
Right. And Georgia being minus 115 to win the conference, they're minus 500 to win the division. So, the books have a good confidence in Georgia this year.
Yeah, they always know something. I mean, Georgia, they show no sign of slowing down. They always have elite recruits year in and year out. I think even if they somehow did lose a game, they still cruise to the playoffs. So they have one of the easiest schedules in all of football.
Right.
It's a typical Georgia Alabama thing. You can't talk shit because when they go play the big games, they show up anyways. It's not like you get a cakewalk and then you shit the bed. Like, they are always winning, and I don't think their cakewalk schedule really does much rather than have less injuries and less impact on the players going into those big games. So I think Georgia's going to get it done. I'm not too fond on betting a team to go undefeated at the line at 11.5. If it was just 11, I'd feel a little more comfortable, maybe get a push.
Right.
So I'm not super high on the under, but I just want to I would just stay away from this bet.
For sure. Like you kind of were saying, they're not the Gonzaga in basketball where they play the cake schedule and then show up, win the big game, and lose. Because truthfully, probably their practice is a harder game than what Saturday is for them. Most
for
weeks.
Sure, they're playing against 5 stars all week long.
Right.
And then they go play fucking McNeese State.
Question for you. If Georgia does get it done this year, so this be a three-peat, is Kirby Smart entering Nick Saban territory? Yes or no?
Absolutely. In my eyes, because he's doing it in the Nick Saban era. If Nick Saban retired and he was beating an Alabama team, recruiting, regular season, playoffs, then it's like, you can toss it up as like he didn't have to play the GOAT. But the fact that he's doing it in his era, in his conference, you have to put him there. In my eyes, I feel like I'm not even a big Kirby Smart fan. He's fucking knocked Michigan out 2 years in a row. So I don't really like the guy, but I definitely respect him. He gets it done on and off the field with recruiting as well. So
I agree wholeheartedly. I agree. There needs to be a conversation with, okay, in the 2000s, who was the best coach in the SEC? You don't know right now. We'll see how it unfolds.
He'll be the best coach. If he wins this year, he'll obviously be the best coach of the 2020s.
Right.
He'll own this decade, which is fine. But yeah, I would definitely put him up there. I think he's, one of the best coaches. He came from a great coaching tree, and he's always had success. So the fact that he does it as a head coach is not super surprising, but the fact that Georgia is just so nasty every year is, a little surprising.
For sure.
All right, next team, Kentucky, over under 6.5 wins.
Shout out Cecil Cole. I know you're watching. You've been probably waiting for us to talk about the Kentucky Wildcats. I am taking the over 6.5, and I actually put it in all caps on my notes. I think for sure wins they have Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, Vandy, Missouri, Louisville, and then or Louisville if you're from Kentucky. Should start the season 5-0, and then all they got to do is win one other game than the games I listed, and boom, they're on the over. So Do I think they get it done? Yes, I'm pretty confident in that. So I will be looking at Kentucky Wildcats over 6.5.
I'm with you. They got a really good transfer quarterback. He, 2 years ago, did 35 touchdowns and 5 picks.
Right,
Right, 2 years ago.
Devin Leary from NC
Devin
State.
Leary, yeah. So he's going to be the one to look for. Head coach Mark Stoops always has a very fast and effective offense. They're always fun to watch. Kentucky's been fun to watch the last few years, and they have one of the top 3 receiving cores maybe in all of football. A lot of returning talent on offense. Tavion Robinson, Barian Brown, and Dane Key. They're the top one or some of the top 3 receivers in all of this conference. So they will be very exciting to watch. And I'm kind of looking forward to them playing these big time games, seeing if they can steal one from one of the favorites in this conference. But definitely looking forward to Kentucky. Shout out Cecil. We appreciate you.
Definitely. I mean, you look at Kentucky and how they've done in the past, 5 years, 5, 10 years. It always comes down to their quarterback play. They have a good quarterback and he gets hurt, so they have to bring in someone to play, or they never had a quarterback and they always struggle. With Devin Leary, just looking at his stats, 2 years ago, can he win a big game? He beat Clemson in double overtime. Like when Clemson was at its peak. So he can win big games. Unfortunately, he did lose last year to Clemson by 10. But to start the game, the NC State was in it because of his play. So he should be good. That offense should be clicking on all cylinders. Look for them to make a little noise.
For sure. That's exciting, especially on this side of the conference where pretty much everyone's at 5.5, 6 win totals. Hopefully Kentucky can climb to that 7, 8, 9.
For sure.
But yeah, we definitely like this. Missouri is next.
Over under set at 6.5. What you got?
So they got a QB battle with Brady Cook and transfer from Notre Dame, Jake Garcia. They return 8 starters this year. So although last year was extremely rocky and they folded a lot of games, they should have been super competitive. I still take the under. I don't see them being anything crazy this year. I don't see them winning. If they're lucky, they'll get to a bowl game in my eyes and be at 6 wins.
I'm right there with you. I'm taking the under. Looking at their schedule, South Dakota, Middle Tennessee, Memphis, Vanderbilt, South Carolina. Those are games that I feel like they should probably win. But I just looking at the SEC gauntlet, it's tough for me to say, yeah, that 50-50 game right there, they really should win that one or this one. And I don't see that on their schedule. I would go under 6.5 all day long.
For sure. There's a couple teams in this conference like South Carolina, which is the next team. They're at 6 wins. You pretty much, most of these teams that are under 6 wins, the one team you think they're going to beat in this division is Vanderbilt. So
right.
pretty much they win their 2 or 3 non-conference games, and then they beat Vanderbilt, and they're at 3 or 4 wins. And that's like South Carolina. We think they're going to beat Furman, Jacksonville State, and maybe Vanderbilt, but their over-under is at 6 wins. One thing about South Carolina, they do have Spencer Rattler. He's supposed to improve. Hopefully he can take the leap this year. That last half of last season, he was a dog. He was putting up a lot of points, and he was winning a lot of football games for him. So the big question mark for South Carolina, just like last year, is their offensive line. They can't protect the kid. They had a lot of people graduate, so there's a lot of incoming and transfers going to be up front for them, and it's really just going to see how well they play out. Their quarterback should be good, but it just depends on who's protecting them and how good their defense is. I do expect them to be better than preseason expectations, but I don't expect them to win over 7 games. Their ceiling is 6 games for me.
I couldn't have said it better. Spencer Rattler, he's a fun quarterback to watch going back to his time in Oklahoma. But again, like you said, there's 3 games on their schedule that I feel like they should win. After that, it's all 50-50, and I can't say with confidence that they're going to win 3 50-50 games. So I would take the under 6.0 for sure.
I respect that. What about Tennessee? Tennessee last year, 10 wins. They haven't had 10 wins since 2007. I believe they do it again. I think they're going to have over 10 wins. The over-under right now is at 9. Their tough games are going to be Texas A&M, Georgia, and at Kentucky and at Alabama. You can pretty much chalk up the at Alabama on the Georgia and just think if they can beat Texas A&M or Kentucky and they can get to 9 wins.
Again, stole it right out of my mouth right there. I could not say it any better. I do have them going over. I think they get to 10 wins because I think of those 4 games, they have to win 50% and boom, they're over. If they somehow pull out 3 of the 4 games, because you never know what can happen in Rocky Top, there you go. You got your 11th win, but I would take 10 for sure. So over for Tennessee. Go Vols.
Go Vols. And this is a big year for Big Joe Milton. There's a lot of expectations for him to be that guy, and he's going to have to prove it against some of the best defenses in the league. A lot of people are comparing him to Anthony Richardson and just his build, play style, and how he's going to transfer to the league. So I'm still hopeful for Joe Milton, even though he left Michigan. I still kind of root for him low-key. So it's going to be a super big year for him, and pretty much the season's going to be on his back. Whether that fucking piss missile of a cannon is going to be accurate enough or not, because we know he can launch it. It's just how accurate he's going to be, and how good his defense is at the end of the day.
Right, and that's what he struggled with at Michigan, right? Like you could throw the ball a mile, but you can't pitch the ball 5 yards. Good old Remember the Titans quote. But Joe Milton, throwback to Michigan. I won't say I root for him, but do I wish that he would play up to his potential? Because it's sad, because he had all the hype in the world, especially after the first game of the year with Minnesota, I think it was, back when he had the chance to start. And then just kind of fell off the table. Cade came in and kind of overtook him, and then never saw him again. He went to Tennessee. Finally, he's getting his chance. Hopefully he can be Anthony Richardson and make some good draft stock for himself. But Tennessee over 9. Lock it. Yeah,
piggybacking off that Joe Milton, some quarterbacks just need an extra year or 2 to develop.
It's true.
They can't just be that guy like some of these studs are coming into their freshman year or redshirt freshman year. Some players need to work into their junior year, even with the redshirt. So hopefully he makes the big leap this year. I expect big things from him. He came in when their quarterback got hurt last year, led them to a bowl win, and just played well overall. He didn't turn the ball over like he did when he got pulled earlier in the year and when he was at Michigan. So, all right, to round this conference out, we got the shit stains Vanderbilt.
Oh, Vandy. Some people struggle to even know what state this team is located in. That's how relevant Vanderbilt is for football. Over under 3.5 wins. Jesus. I say take the over. Am I confident?
Go Vandy, baby.
Am I confident? No. But the reason why I think you take the over is because their first 4 games are Hawaii, Alabama A&M, Wake Forest, and UNLV. I think they can win those 4 games. Obviously, they might prove me wrong, but if they win those 4 games, you don't have to worry about it the rest of the season.
Even if they win 3, you would expect they pull 1 more out within the next 8 games somehow.
Somehow, some way.
Somehow, some way. Yeah. I am not in love with the 3.5, but it's such bait. I would take it. I would take a personal 3.5. It's so fucking low. I'll grab me a Vandy jersey and I'll cheer for him.
Love it. I love it.
All right. Don't expect them to win the conference at plus 50,000. Like I said, you are smoking meth. So that's a SEC East. To round that up, pretty much Georgia's going to run the table as usual. We have high expectations for Kentucky and Tennessee. And me specifically have a little more higher expectations for South Carolina than the preseason. Every other team, they're going to be poo. They're going to be poo. It's a tough conference. They're going to have some tough games and some blowouts, to say the least. But let's roll into the SEC West, and we'll start it off with one of the best teams in the conference, Alabama.
One of the best teams in the country, too. Over-under set at 10.5. Tough games for them. Week 2, Texas. This was a tough game for them last year.
I'm so horny for that game. That game is going to be so good. Texas should have won that shit last year.
Right.
But this is huge, especially with Texas's Just super high expectations. There's a lot of buzz down there in Texas this year, so that'll be a super exciting game.
Versus Tennessee week 8 and versus LSU week 9. So back to back tough games for them on their schedule week 8 and 9. Um, Truthfully, I think they do lose to Texas because, like you said, if Cam doesn't get hurt last year, Texas wins that game. Um, they're looking for their quarterback again, like we talked about with Georgia. They're going to get tested almost right away. They'll have their cakewalk game for week 1, then they'll turn around and play Texas in a game that is going to be a battle. I do think they lose to Texas, but then I think they run the table and go 11-1. So take the over 10.5, no problem.
Okay, I like that. You think they lose to Texas, eh?
Yep.
Oh shit, that's exciting. So for me, Alabama's gonna Alabama, but this year is one of the most uncertain years in recent memories. They didn't make the conference final last year, and they're coming into this year with a quarterback trio trying to figure out their quarterback starter. Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, and Tyler Buckner. He was the Notre Dame transfer. The other one was from somewhere else.
Okay.
So, as usual, to begin the year, they're going to have to lean on defense in the running game. Just trying to get their quarterback's feet wet and, try to build him into this offense rather than making him the focal point of the offense. I got this in my notes. The GOAT knows what he's doing. You can't go against the GOAT. I'm going to take over 10.5. I think they get 11. If they got 10, I wouldn't be too surprised. Like I said, they got a lot of uncertainties going into this year, but I will never fade Nick Saban. Ever. I won't fade him. I won't bet against Tom Brady, and I won't bet against Nick Saban. I won't do it. I'll keep my money in my pocket before I bet against him.
I mean, that's a smart bet, right? You'd lose a lot of money if you bet against Nick Saban in his career. I'm just looking at their roster and trying to remember some names. Nothing's sticking out to me right now as far as people that I need to look out
No,
for.
it won't. It won't. They have a lot of uncertainties, a lot of guys that went to the league. So
offensive and defensive. But like we talked about with Georgia, every week for them is a game. Like every practice is a game. They're going up against better talent than 50% of the games they're going to play. This is a team that'll be ready. I think they get punched in the mouth against Texas week 2, but then they figure it out going into the gauntlet of their schedule, and by that time, week 8, week 9 come around, they're well-oiled machine, and see ya. Going to the
that's
SEC
fucking
championship.
exciting. Yeah, like we were talking about, Bama, Georgia, some of these teams, backups would start on every other team, maybe in the country, definitely in the division. So it's hard to say how well they're going to do just because this is the most uncertain year, whether who's playing, who's going to be on the field, how much tick these players are going to get. But at the end of the day, they always have the best recruits and they always find a way to get it done. Even
Right.
their bad year is losing 2 games. So if they don't have another bad year and lose only 1 game, then they're in the playoffs again, man.
Right. And I know, okay, looking at it for as far as like week Tennessee and then LSU, they have a bye in between. So they should be okay. I didn't realize that earlier. But they should be fine. Alabama will Alabama. Saban
Yeah,
will Saban.
roll tide, baby. On to Arkansas. Over under 7 wins flat, and their odds to win the division is plus 8K.
I think over 7 is a good bet for Arkansas Razorbacks. KJ Jefferson, their quarterback, kind of is like
Stud.
Cam Newton, but not as dominant, I guess I should say. He's the one that I think of most often. It might be because he wears number 1, but who knows? But watching him play last year before he started battling some injury stuff, he could take over a football game. Defenses couldn't stop him. Rocket Sanders, which you kind of mentioned before we started the episode, their running back, the man can fly, and that's a 1-2 punch that you have to look out for, especially with the read option. I think they win 9 games at least, and then with losses to LSU and Bama on the road, those are 2 games that I don't think they have a chance to win, but they should compete in every other game.
For sure. First and foremost, Rocket Sanders is one of the coolest fucking names, especially as like a speedster. Your name's Rocket. It just makes sense.
Right.
One of the coolest names. Like you said, KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders, they're going to be the studs to look out on offense. This team has 10 incoming transfers this year that should be able to plug and play. That's kind of the motto right now in the SEC. If you're not Alabama, Georgia, getting the 5-star recruits coming out of high school. 10 transfers. They play versus some of the toughest defense in all the country. So it's really hard to take them over 7 wins. I think it's very pushable. I'm going to take the under.
Okay.
You like the over. I like the under.
All right. We'll have to put a little side wager on it.
Okay. All right, let's get to one of the toughest schedules in this conference. Auburn, they're at over under 7 wins, and they are a plus 8K.
Take the under right now, ladies and gentlemen. Under 7 for sure. Tough schedule. They have to play LSU, Bama, and Georgia. And if everyone hasn't broken their necks by the time you get done with those 3, you also have Peyton Thorne at quarterback potentially. So take the under for sure.
I am hammering the under. Hammering the under.
I'm sorry to my Spartan friends, but he stunk it up in the Big Ten last year. The last 2 years, truthfully.
I thought I was watching John O'Corn.
Just a remake.
Yeah.
And, this is a tough schedule. This is better football. Better football, I guess I should put in quotes. It's going to be a competition for him, but I think he might end up starting for him. If he does, I feel even better about the under.
I'm right there with you. I like their head coach and Hugh Freeze. I don't think he can do much for Peyton to make him that much better. I don't think they have a lot of talent around the ball that'll make him seem better than he was. I think he's kind of in the same situation he was at Michigan State, where you just kind of have a lackluster offense around you, and it's kind of hard to stand out, especially without a great line or a running game. So I don't expect a lot from Auburn. I definitely don't expect a lot from Peyton Thorne. I will be watching and making sure I catch a couple of interceptions if he is playing, just to make myself feel better. But yeah, I banged the under on this. If it was at 6, I might take the under as well.
I love it.
So if there's an alt line at 6.5 or 6, let's bang it.
All right, I love it. Let's do it.
All right, the second best odds in this side of the division, we got LSU over under 9.5, and LSU is a plus 450 to win this conference.
I think you take the over for LSU. Looking at their schedule, their tough games are Florida State and Bama. And truthfully, I think they could beat Florida State and compete with Alabama. They have to go to Alabama this year, so obviously makes it a little tougher playing in Bama. But Jaden Daniels, their quarterback, is fun to watch and is a playmaker.
Dog.
One of the better bets for this year, or at least for this conference, this division in particular. I kind of like taking them at plus 200 to win the division. Because with Bama, you're not going to get the return on your investment that you really want, though they're a safer bet. LSU, if they run the table because they can, you're plus 200, you're looking great.
Yeah, I like it. And like I said, they won last year. They beat Alabama last year with Alabama's team last year wasn't the best. Obviously, they didn't even make the conference finals. But this year is even more undetermined than last year. So the fact that you can get plus chicken for this, I like LSU. I love Jaden Daniels as a quarterback. He's one of the most exciting and electric players to watch in all of college football. I like the over 9.5. I do like the over 9.5. I'll be really excited to watch them play versus FSU, and then we can determine how this year is really going to be, because that's going to be a dogfight regardless, and that'll really determine how they're going to stack up against Bama. So LSU is always a fun team to watch. It's always fun to watch teams play in LSU. So at the end of the day, I like over 9.5, and I would like to sprinkle the plus 200 as well. I'm not super big on Alabama. I think someone winning this side, you take the plus chicken.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Hell yeah, baby.
I love
Go
Coach
Tigers. Dude, he's one of the best. One of the best.
But
All
no,
right.
truthfully, what you said, week one they play Florida State. If they dominate that game, I feel super confident about them running the table all the way to Alabama, and then you never know what can happen in that rivalry game.
Yeah, even for me, they just have to win. They don't even have
Right.
to dog them. They just have to, even if it's a close battle and they win, that almost does more for them.
Truth.
Because they
Truth.
kind of get a little more grit in that win, and that kind of goes a long way for a team, especially coming out week one playing a tough team. Sometimes, some coaches don't like playing hard teams in the first 3 weeks, but when you do play those teams and you win, it pays off. It always pays off to win one of those games. Losing one of those games can be detrimental to your season and the aura of the locker room, but winning those games, you are on cloud nine instantly.
No, for sure. And correct me if I'm wrong. Brian Kelly's still there coaching, correct?
Brian Kelly is still there coaching.
He can coach football. The man can coach
Absolutely.
football. So you,
And he looked great last year. They looked great last year.
they truthfully did. They really did.
And they kind of, that Brian Kelly, he pulls a rabbit out of the hat sometimes. He likes to do a little trickery, do a little fun 4th down, 2-point conversion. Like, he's a very risky coach and fun to watch. And I feel like he's a perfect fit in LSU. I'm glad they had success last year and beat Bama, because this year is just going to be even more exciting for them.
Definitely.
I know Coach Worsham is going crazy.
He's over there ringing the bell. I don't know if you've seen him on Facebook, but every time they score, he rings the bell.
Oh, yeah. The fat chaw dog in, too. All right, let's get to some of the bottom feeders. We got Mississippi State over under 6.5, and their odds to win this is plus 12K.
Again, if you're taking them to win the conference,
stay off the weed. And call the number. 1-800-GAMBLER, folks.
Mississippi State under 6.5 is what I would go with. Just looking at their schedule, in their schedule, they have games that they're definitely going to lose, right? When you play the Alabama, you play the LSU, tough games. Unfortunately for them, all of those tough games are at home. And then all of their 50-50 games are pretty much on the road. So I think under 6.5 is a lock, purely because I don't think you can travel and win games consistently, especially in this hard of a conference. So under 6.5, I'm really not big on Mississippi State this year. That's just my thoughts.
All right, well, I'm going to fade you. I'm going to take over 6.5.
Okay.
I'm not super high on it, but I will take it. I really like quarterback Will Rogers. Their defense finished in the top 5 last year in this conference, 23.1 points per game, which is great. Especially with, the teams they play, you can get 50 hung up on you twice, and your points per game's looking around 30 points now. So I like they're over 6.5. I don't think they decline much from last year. They got a lot of players coming back. They got their quarterback, that's a stud, coming back. I think that, the hardest thing for them is going to be winning on the road. But it isn't anything crazy. You can win on the road.
Defense travels.
Defense travels. You like I said, you got your quarterback. I think they surprised some teams this year. I like them over 6.5, maybe 7, maybe 8 wins, but 7 wins for sure. I'll take their over.
All right. So we got 2 teams now. We got Arkansas and Mississippi State. We're building a little friendly wager here. That's good. That's good.
Yes, sir. Next team, Texas A&M, over under 8.5 wins, and they are where are they at? Plus 1400.
I think this is another under 8.5. I could see them winning 8 games, but they lose to Bama, they lose to LSU, they probably lose to Tennessee, and then they probably lose some random SEC gauntlet team. You just get fatigued, you don't bring your A game, the other team does, and boom, you walloped, you get beat. Obviously, their coach can coach football, Mr. Fisher, but I just don't trust it. I don't think they go over 8.5.
Well, trust coming from last year is probably the biggest word for this team. Last season, they were preseason top 10, and they didn't end up making a bowl game. Preseason top 10, and you don't win 6 games. I do not love this team this year. There's a bad taste in my mouth from last year. The fact that they are at 8.5 is a little wild to me. I would think they're around 7.5 to 8. I'm with you on this one. I like the under 8.5. I don't really care if they should bounce back,
Right.
but 9 wins is still a lot in this conference. So the fact that they're at 8.5, I would gladly hammer the under.
For sure. And I mean, 9 wins with the 3 teams that they played that
Guarantee lose.
Right, exactly. And you never know. Any given
Then
week.
they have to run the table with the other 9. Yeah,
Right.
I bet. I bet. All right. Fuck Texas A&M. On to Ole Miss, last team in the conference. Their over-under is at 7.5, and their odds to win it all is, where are we at? Plus 45 hundo.
Another under. I don't know why, but I'm under on a lot of these teams.
Dude, you fucking hate this conference.
No, I think I'm up. I think I'm way over on the teams that I think are over, and I'm under on everyone else. But
so Georgia's winning every game. Everyone else sucks.
Exactly. Ole Miss, the Rebels, under 7.5. They've got tough games at Bama, at Georgia, at Auburn, home against LSU. So this is another team that plays the 3 big dogs, quote unquote big dogs. Teams they should beat: Mercer, Tulane, Georgia Tech, UL Monroe, and Vandy. That's that's 5 games. Do I see them winning 2 more 50-50 games? I don't think so. So that's why I'm taking the under.
They could win 2 more and still be at 7. They need to win 3.
Okay, right? You're right.
1, 2, yeah, so they would have to win 3. So that's even a bigger sell for you.
Truth.
Okay, so this is another team that I have big trust issues in. Last year they started 5-0. Lane Kiffin, he knows what he's doing. They finished 8-5. They went 3-5 after starting off 5-0. They did hire Alabama's defensive coordinator this year. Last year's defensive coordinator. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes defensively that we don't know about, and we'll see how that plays to fruition, because we know Lane Kiffin is an offensive guy. The fact they got Alabama's defense coordinator, we'll see if they can make that leap defensively, because you have to have a great defense in this league, in this conference, to win games, because there's so many good offenses, there's so many good quarterbacks, and there's so much speed around the ball that your defense has to be able to fly. So they got a lot of question marks going in this year. I'll take their under. I don't really believe in Lane Kiffin, and I typically think they're frauds.
I mean, you're not wrong, and you know that every Saban, I guess every coach from Saban's coaching tree struggles against Saban. So why would you think this is going to be any different? I think 8 games is just too much for them to try and pull out.
All right, who do you think is going to win the conference, and what are the odds for it?
All right, so I think you get Georgia in the conference championship game. Obviously, the books agreed, minus 500 to win their division. And I think it's going to be Georgia-Bama. I think Bama gets back on track this year and does make it to the conference championship. Unfortunately, what I don't like about the SEC is that they play the conference championship in Georgia, I'm pretty sure, at the, what's it called, the Mercedes Dome in Atlanta. So it's pretty much a home game for Georgia every year. So I think Georgia does win the conference again. Obviously, it's a little chalk, minus 115 to win it all, or at least the conference, but it's just tough to go against them.
I feel you. I respect that. I do think Georgia's going to get there on their side. I'm going to take LSU at plus 450.
Okay. I love it.
Give me LSU plus 450. Like I said, I'm not betting against Nick Saban, but my thoughts are LSU wins this division. I would like to see him, but if Georgia does it again, props to Kirby Smart. He's going to be one of the GOATs. He's definitely going to be the best in this decade, and he's going to be up in that upper echelon of best all time. But for me, I'm going to go out on a limb this year. I'm going to say, give me LSU versus Georgia. LSU pulls off the upset.
Okay. All right. I mean, I like the plus 200 LSU to win the division. That's probably, as far as value, my favorite pick for this year, as well as Arkansas over 7 wins. But, that's just a different story.
Yeah. I like Kentucky this year, actually. So
Okay, all right.
we might have to have some side bets on this conference. This conference is going to be fun as fuck as usual. And it really, it's going to pop off in the first 3 weeks because Alabama and Texas.
Week 1,
That's
we get
yeah.
LSU and Florida State, right? LSU and Florida
Yep.
State.
Yep.
Week 2,
LSU,
we
Florida
get
State.
Bama, Texas. So, like, let's go SEC right from the get-go.
Hopefully, they both don't lose.
Right, yeah, that
Because
would be
that side of
bad.
the that side of the conference might be a little chalked, and then Georgia minus 115 is looking spectacular.
Right. Georgia to make the playoffs, I think, is minus 275 right now on the books. So
Disgusting.
right, exactly. And I think the only other minus team is Ohio State right now.
What are the odds that 2 SEC teams go again?
You got to think they're pretty good, right? Like between Alabama and LSU, you would assume that whoever makes it to the SEC championship has 1 loss, and then potentially their second losses to Georgia. Or 1 loss, their first losses to Georgia, I guess I should say. A 1-loss SEC team should make it over like the Pac-12 champion and probably the Big 12 champion because the Big 12 just beats the shit out of each other because no defense can stop anyone.
So what if Michigan and Ohio State both 11-1, or one's 11-1, one's 12-0? They both have to go. Is it just straight up Big Ten versus SEC? If we're looking at preview, if we're looking at what we think is going to, happen, you're going to think LSU or Alabama's only going to have 1 loss going into the conference championship. So a 2-loss LSU or 2-loss Alabama, do they get in over a conference championship somewhere else?
This is what I'll say. If it's 2 SEC versus 2 Big Ten teams, I think it's going to expedite the process of getting an expanded college football playoff very quickly because we want to see it. No one else in the country wants to see it. So obviously the Midwest and the South wants to see that because they're,
our teams.
We always talk shit to each other. We're the better football conference. No, we're the better football conference, blah, blah, blah. All right, well, let's prove it. Your 2 versus my 2. Let's run it. But obviously from the Mississippian over would be pissed off, and then the eastern side would be mad as well. But yeah, I would love to see 2 and 2. That would be exciting for sure.
It's obviously a way too early prediction, but that would be fun to see. But it's always weird because you have that undefeated Cincy team, or USC runs the table in the pack. Like, you never know what would happen. It's always crazy though, because if that scenario plays out, either a 2-loss Alabama or a 2-loss LSU or a 2-loss Ohio State gets cut out, or Michigan gets cut out for one of the teams that went undefeated or 1 loss and won their conference.
Right.
Even though they should be in there, but there's only 4 teams and it's all politics at the end of the day.
For sure. What's bringing in the most amount of money, and that's what it's going to come down to. It always does. It's like why they mess around with who's ranked 2 and 3 or 3 and 4 right before the playoffs. It's because they don't want to put SEC up against each other, and they want to make sure they're making the most amount of dough.
Yep, that makes sense. And it worked out for Michigan last year if they would have won.
Yeah, I mean,
we got what we wanted. I mean, we could have got, we got what we wanted.
We got what we wanted. Ohio State should have beat Georgia last year. Truthfully, if you look at that game, they definitely had the ability. They were up big. They should have beat Georgia, but both Big Ten
Michigan
teams
versus Ohio State in the championship would have fucking went nuts.
The country would have been on fire.
Yeah, it would have been fucking insane. The SEC, that whole South would have been extremely pissed off. But
right, I unfortunately on my Twitter today, a video popped up of if Turner makes a tackle on 3rd and 7, Michigan is national champions. And I was like, and they showed the video of Quentin Johnson breaking the tackle and going. I was crying.
They would have went. I don't say they're beating Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say they're gonna beat Georgia either, but that's just what it said.
For sure. Damn, that one stings. Why did they even have to say that? I would have blocked that motherfucker.
Right. I gotta go back and find who it was.
Yeah, report him.
Right.
Hateful speech.
For sure.
All right, buddy. Any closing words on the SEC?
Just really excited for football. Week 0 is coming up here pretty soon. We got, I think, 10 days until that happens. So, hey, we're almost there, boys. We almost made it. We got some fun stuff coming up as far as, episodes we're gonna do. Maybe a hangout with a bunch of the boys if they want to come out to the crib, and then potentially a little. I don't want to call it partnership, but a little team up what we're gonna do as well. So, yeah, things are looking fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Good things looking ahead. We're super excited. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. Couple of affiliations, couple partnerships. We're getting worked out. So hopefully that comes to fruition very soon and we can announce that and let you guys know what's up. The watch party is definitely going to happen. Hopefully as many Michigan games as possible, as long as, we're not at the games. But if we're not at the games, hopefully we're together streaming it and bullshitting for the game. So.
Amen. I can't wait for the first lines to come out. We can start breaking them down, talking about them, keep our record for the season, see who does a little better. But,
Absolutely. Yeah. A little competition is going to go a long way this year.
Compete? What? Us two? No.
All right, fellas, that's going to do it for us for episode 27 of the Third Leg Podcast. As always, we appreciate you guys. Much love.
Thank you so much. Peace.
Another one for Tommy boy. Another one for the world. Another one for the listeners. And maybe